So this is a full refurb breakdown that I want to show you. It's very important to understand and get better knowledge in refurbishments. It's better for quoting, figuring out if the property's worth buying, if there's going to be any issues. So come with me and I'll show you all around this particular property. Now, first of all, as you walk in, you're going to want to see or smell if it's humid in here, if it's damp, there's moisture. You know, a lot of these properties are not lived in, but that doesn't mean that there's a lot of damp in here. So first of all, as you come in, we've got the first reception room. Now, when I'm looking at this reception room, I'm going to look at the radiators, I'm going to look at the windows, and I'm going to try and understand what needs ripping out, basically. What can I keep and what needs to go? And the majority of the time, it's going to be properties that, you know, need full rip outs, because that's where the value add is. So this particular property is in bad shape. Now, a lot of these properties have Artex ceilings. A lot of them, there is traces of asbestos in Artex ceilings. So it's something that you need to be aware of, especially if you're doing your own refurb. Because if you start scraping at these heavy, thick Artex, you could be inhaling asbestos, and we all know about asbestos, very damaging. And anyone who doesn't, it was used for fire-resistant material, but after using it, they found that it was very damaging to the lungs, and a lot of properties in the 1970s used asbestos, so it's very dangerous. As you come through now, you have to start to imagine what exit strategy you're going to be doing. What condition? Are we going high spec? Are we going basic spec? Are we flipping? Is it a buy to let? So all of these things you really want to know before you get into the property, and then confirm when you're in the property. So again, I mean, you can see there that that wallpaper has just peeled right off. And that is because moisture is getting into that wall. Now, you have to start to think, where is that moisture coming from? And a lot of times, it's because, well, for one, there's an actual hole in the wall by there in the bottom left corner that I can see out of the house in. That little hole I can see out into the house. But to me, pointing is when you go across the brick or stone in between the cracks and you block any rain or water ingress into there. And what's happened there is that the pointing has crumbled over the years, meaning there's gaps in between the stone and water's traveling through. Bricks are very porous material. They suck in moisture incredibly. Literally, when you're plastering a brick wall, the plasterers have to squirt countless amounts of water, it just gets sucked in, and you have to do it constantly, because if you're plastering and you haven't got enough moisture, the brick's going to suck in all the moisture from the plaster, and what will happen is your plaster will crack. And if it cracks, it's a problem. So if you're ever plastering, make sure you wet the wall as much as you can so the bricks don't suck in the moisture from the plaster. But anyway, back to the refurb. Is this a problem? It is a problem and it isn't. If you're refurbing, then you're probably going to come to the decision that there's always moisture in these houses. There's always going to be damp issues, because when they were built, it wasn't as much of a problem. Now it's much more aware, and it's something that we actively look to completely minimise and cut out. Now, when you're doing old refurbs, it's much more difficult to do that because you're renovating an existing building, you're not building a new one. So this is the second reception room. Now, sometimes you can open this wall up here. Now, what you have to do for that is you have to get structural engineer in to give you a survey, do all his calculations, order the right RSJs. Do you need 1, 2, how thick are they? And then you're going to have to get those made to the specs of the survey. and then you're going to have to get those delivered. And what you're going to have to do to put that RSJ in is you're going to have to get something called strong buoys. All right, so strong buoys are literally really tall metal poles, and what they do is you'll crank it up, it'll support the ceiling, and you pull it up to take the weight off this wall. So you have multiple strong buoys stuck into the ceiling, and then once they're all up, this is literally a brick wall, so you can just start knocking them down brick by brick. And the actual job isn't that difficult. I think it's more labour intensive. All the calcs and stuff makes it a bit more difficult. But actually, the actual job is quite easy. So you're going to knock all these bricks down. There's going to be a skip outside or whatever. Get rid of that material. And what you're going to be left with is an open space with about 5 or 6 strong buoys stuck into the ceiling. And from there, it's quite easy. You get your RSJ in. Obviously, it's quite heavy. So you're going to need multiple men. You're going to bring it in. And you're going to stick it in to where you can. And then you're going to start cementing bricks and stone and just supporting that RSJ. And until you've done multiple structural sort of reinforcements there, you will not take those strong buoys down. Now, in building regs now, there's a lot about support, because no one really knows if this floor's going to move. You know, it's going to move over a long period of time, because all properties move over a long period of time. The whole planet moves with tectonic plates and all this stuff. So they're going to have to reinforce the RSJ. So they're going to have to build a pillar here, which they're going to have to dig down to make sure it's supported to rest the RSJ on. So that's quite important to remember as well. It's not as easy as getting the RSJ in, because you're going to have to think, how are we going to support that RSJ? So again, all this goes back to the thinking of, is it worth doing? You know, I mean, having an open plan is more desirable for the end user sometimes, and it may increase the GDV, gross domestic value. But for all the work, let's say 4 or 5 grand to do that, are you going to get, if you get 5 grand at the end, what's the point? You've gone through all that time and effort to get the same value. If it increases the value, there's a rule called the 1 to 3. So if it costs you 5 grand, you need to profit from it for 15 grand. So that's sort of a rule of thumb you use there. But with it now, you know, my original thinking when I first come in, oh, it's open plan it all. Let's blow it all up. Let's get one fat open space. But at the end of the day, it costs more than it's worth doing. You know, get in, get out, do a nice refurb, make sure it's dry. You know, don't worry about all these fancy things, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You know, what's the end strategy? Short-term stays. Do you think a tenant or someone who's staying for 6 months, or a guest who's staying for a week's really going to care if that's open plan or not? They're just not. There's no real point in going through all of that stress. Now, I'm just going to get this kitchen in. It's a very small kitchen, right? So you come into this kitchen, and kitchens are very valuable, because if you think of a bare house, you've got 2 things. You've got open plan walls, rooms, but you've got a kitchen and a bathroom, and those are the main elements really that stand out. The garden also, but you know, the kitchen is probably one of the most used rooms in the world in a property. And this particular kitchen is in pretty bad shape. I mean, the roof's falling off for one. There's something to remember though, that on the roofs of these kitchen extensions, again, I mentioned asbestos. This particular property has got asbestos in the roof. So asbestos is fine if you don't disturb it. If you create the dust particles, that's when it's dangerous. But if you leave it alone, like it is now, ideally you don't want to be in here, but you know, it's just all right. So yeah, I mean, if you come around here, and I'll show you this, because this kitchen is very small, as you can see. So how can we maximize this space now? What we're going to do here is we're going to take out this door, and we're going to take out this window. So we're going to create a nice L shape kitchen along here, and we're going to move this door into this space. Have French doors to the back garden. So we're able to have a nice big kitchen there, still have the back access. Now there's going to be a lintel above this window, because that's where the support is. So it shouldn't really be an issue to take this out, put French doors there, and have that back access. So going back to the kitchen again, I mean, the kitchen without the door moved is tiny. I mean, you can't, that's all you get, because you need to have a fridge space, you need to have access to the rooms. But by closing this off, we're able to create a nice bigger space. Potentially, you know, configure this window. Maybe it's worth designing something else to make it even better, so we can put cupboards there. You know, there's options here, definitely options, but it's a bit more difficult because the kitchen is a main selling point of a property. But yeah, you have to also remember your sort of your plumbing for your washing machine, your stove, your extraction fan, all these appliances. A double. I mean, where's the fridge going to go? You know, you have to start to think about these things as you come in. But again, knowledge comes with experience, so it's good just to get cracking, get in, make sure your numbers are okay, and give yourself a margin to work with. Now, I'm not going to stay in this bit for long because I am getting wet, but this is actually the bathroom. Now, in the valleys, typically, the bathrooms have always been in the back of the house. If you find one upstairs, you're very lucky, and normally that's been put there by someone else, not originally designed. This has been designed, obviously, with a grant to extend this kitchen extension from that property. So originally, where the kitchen started, this would never have been here, but they would have got a grant to extend this. Obviously, that's where the asbestos roof come from. So you got to start thinking now, do we move the bathroom upstairs, which is more desirable, or do we try and add a bedroom and keep it downstairs? Now, I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, because some people want a bathroom upstairs, some people are going to want an extra bedroom. If you had a kid, you're going to want an extra bedroom. You know, if you want the ease and you're an old man, you might just want a bathroom upstairs so you don't have to travel down anymore. But all of this, I mean, if you think this is getting wet, it needs a full rewire. It really needs to completely be backed out. Make sure the timbers are going to need to be changed because they're probably going to be, you know, rotting now, essentially. You can listen to my... That's the carpet. The carpet is literally soaking. But it's difficult to see the end image of the property. But you have to remember that it's always going to look crap. It's always going to look dirty and run down and disgusting. But you got to think about the end vision, because if you walk into a nice property, the job's already done. You're not going to make any money. So it's important to remember that. Now, if you look now, skirting, internal doors, architrave, coving, all these stuff are shouting out to me. The good thing about this is that because we know the heating and the plumbing's generally good, we're just gonna rip everything else out, get back to bare. You know, don't have to go back to brick, but it may be an option just to see if it's worthwhile, because what you want to be doing is you want to be coming in, you want to be doing a good solid refurb, so you don't have to come back again. And property is a long-term strategy, a long-term game. As long as you can make it work, then over time you will make money. Do a good job so you don't have to come back, and that asset will pay you forever. It's literally an unlimited supply. So this is the downstairs refurb. I'm going to end it here. So thanks for listening. Stay tuned.